We're just gonna start off with the prayer. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through His holy prophet.
Through His holy prophet.
Noble Juali.
Islam.
Peace. And
Peace.
hold tight. Just some quick bills. Next week Sunday, March 30th, 2014. We have a Skype lecture with Sister Naji Ula Il and Brother V. Taylor Il, the authors of Moors in America.
That's next week?
Yeah, that's next week Sunday. Right? You could also get the book Moors in America on Amazon.com. I think it's in paperback form.
So that's one again?
Amazon.com.
No, what's the name of the book?
Oh, Moors in America.
Right.
Moors in America. And Saturday, April 26, 2014, at Jamaican Canadian Association, JCA, it's the legitimacy or fallacy of the Moorish Science Temple, the great debate between myself, Udrado L, and Dr. Ali Muhammad. And that's at 995 Hour Road. Contact information 647-781-4027. As well, they're going to be streaming the debate, and the address is ustream.com/the-great-debate-series. All right. So today, actually, before we do that, it's just because we're finding out every day, we're finding out more and more that there's some dirty Moors in this movement, and majority of these individuals who claim to be for their people or whatever like that, they don't have any intentions of doing anything to assist the people to get out from under colonization. They want they have to be paid off in order to be able to live in colonization. Right?
Ooh.
The dirty people.
Right.
Right? Because if they were living in this situation just like us, it would be in their best interest to do things, according to where Noble Juali was going with things, right? For us to get out of this. There's no other option, really, right? So we're just going to read our letters to be read every meeting with Noble Juali warning the Moors about all these traders that are around and what the position of the people who are saying that they want to support the Prophet, support the movement, where they're supposed to be in their frame of mind. And keep in mind that these warnings to be read every meeting, right, were held back from the people, as we know. And being that they were held back from the people have no idea the criminals that are in these so-called Moorish institutions, telling them about nationality and birthrights and freedom and all this type of stuff, right? The majority of the people really have an opportunist approach with this information, and people who are seeking to get more of this information, right? So the first letter, a warning from the Prophet to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical and agitating speeches while on their jobs, homes, or in the public streets. We advocate peace and not destruction. Stop trying out your cards with the Europeans, for it causes confusion. There has been much confusion caused by members trying out their cards. The cards are for your salvation. Failure of obeying my orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, Justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members that seek to hold malicious feelings toward the Prophet or the temple, or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors must obey the laws laid down to them by their Prophet, and if they lose confidence in their Prophet, give up your card and button, cease wearing your turban or fez, and return to the state where I, the Prophet, found you. For this is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And if the Prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The Prophet is sending out a divine plea to all true Moorish Americans that they may do their part in protecting their Prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the Prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Right? So he told the Moors, if you lose confidence in I, the Prophet, right, which means that, you know, he's done things to make our perspective of him give us confidence. Things have already been done. If he's going to say, if you lose confidence in me. So obviously he's done things for people to gain confidence in him. Right? And this is 1929, so this is after Havana, Cuba. Mm-hmm. This is after the first convention. Mm-hmm. This is after Oscar the Priest, Moorish American congressman in Chicago, getting elected to Congress. This is after all that. So he already did everything for the people to have trust in him. Mm-hmm. And all these sellouts took the position of, forget, you know, oh, he's not my prophet. Talking like that, mm-hmm. Right? Well, I don't want nothing to do with Noble Drew Ali, you know, because Moors been in America and we don't have to honor him because there's always been Moors here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. But he's the only one that told you that you're Moors. Mm-hmm.
That's the part.
He's the only one that told us, you're not Negro, black, colored, Indians or whatever like mm-hmm. that, you're Moors. Mm-hmm. Yeah, people there were Moors here doing things relative to the Moors in America. Mm-hmm. Granted, but they were going around telling Negro, black, colored people who were in slavery that, hey, you know, come on, let me tell you something. Mm-hmm. Right? They didn't try to take the people off the plantation. Right? Comment.
No, I was just thinking that ultimately what you're saying then too is the ones that are actively holding us back, they're one sect of the problem.
Right.
The ones that know and didn't do anything about it,
that's another.
It's a whole other sect. So yeah. Basically, there was a two-pronged, or not two-pronged. There's at least two sets of people who had knowledge, who either by action or inaction are not waking their people up.
Right, and Noble Drew Ali told the Moors, in order to change the people, you must change your literature. Why? Because all the literature that we have is BS. Calling us black, calling us African. We came over here on a slave ship. All these stories about whatever, right? Indians, cowboys and Indians, Tonto and Lone Ranger and all this type of stuff. If that's what's on our dial plate, right? If that's the map that we're following, we're not going anywhere.
Interesting too. I was just over at a friend's house last night, and they were telling me that their children are going, I can't remember, grade 5 or 6. They're getting rid of spelling now because you've got these things in the phone that are spell checks and all this stuff. And I realized, I think that's another counter to the fact that we've got to stop you reading, right?
Dumb down the masses. But now, you know, now it's on a mass scale.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not only so-called black people or slaves or whatever that are subject to the injustice or to colonization or to mind control tactics or Tuskegee experiments or whatever.
COINTELPRO
or whatever. Everybody is under this occupational bubble right now, right?
Operation, I was gonna think.
Right, and just like you're saying that on our side, there's there's these groups of people who have the information and they're not telling, right? And then there's these individuals who, what was the other part? They have the information and they're not telling.
Well, you have the ones who are doing the crime. That's the problem. Many of the ones watching the crime being done are
Right.
not doing anything about it, right?
Right.
And I think what I've understood is sometimes those people are just as equally
Responsible.
responsible.
Right. So on the European side,
We have the whole their set
you
side
have
of people.
their ones that are not down with the whole New World Order, gentrification, hypothecation, escheating or whatever, and they're standing up for the Aboriginal and Indigenous people,
Right.
right? Now, if they're standing up for the Aboriginal and Indigenous people, but calling them Indians,
Mm-hmm.
or calling them some fiction that they're not,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then it adds on to the problem. Whereas, if you have a European like Rick Smith,
Mm-hmm.
he's not even playing no Indian games with people.
Well, I was thinking about this when I walked in here today too, because even this paradigm that we're talking about, Moorish paradigm, is still just a level within the level.
Right.
And that's what I got from the Rick Smith's thing, which is that he was talking on a sort of a broader level, right? Or
Yeah.
a level one up from that, right?
Right. So today, what I wanted to do, one was to introduce, because people, just so people know, National Grand Chief Kenu Umar Bey, who Brother Jabbar talked about a lot in his classes. That's one of the Moors that put me through the Arab chamber.
All right.
Right. So he's directly involved in Canaanland Moors being established and having this position that we have. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he's somebody that he doesn't really play up front like that. Right. Now, regardless of what type of issues people have with him or what he's doing or whatever, right? When my engagement with him was nothing but, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Like, I don't know anything else about him based on my interaction with him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just like my interaction with all these other Moors out here. I don't know, like Moors that we put on, right? I don't know how they deal with other people, but how they dealt with me was on some love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I don't have any qualms. Right? Like other people would have, that guy, you can't talk about that guy because of, he did this, he did that, or whatever. Right? This is strictly based on my direct interaction with him. Mm-hmm. Right? So, Brother Kenu Umar Bey, Divine Minister, has a book called 107 Amazing Facts About the Indigenous Moorish Americans of the Western Hemisphere. Right? And he's on Facebook, Kenu Umar Bey. If you want to get the book, just shout him out. Tell him Cujo sent you. Right? So we're just gonna go through some of this book and just discuss, some of the stuff that's in here. So 107 amazing facts about the indigenous Moorish Americans. Right? And there's the book right there. All right. Indigenous Moors have lived in the Western Hemisphere since time immemorial. Indigenous Moors were not spawned or created as a result of Africans coming to the Western Hemisphere during the transatlantic slave trade, mixing in with native people of the Western Hemisphere region, also known as Native American Indians. Indigenous Moorish people of the Western Hemisphere, also known as Indians, did not refer to themselves or their ancestors as Indian. We use the word Indian since most people are accustomed to this title. The word Indian, Red Man, Native American, and European are colonizing terms. Indigenous has always referred to themselves by way of the tones and vibrations of their expression. Your spirit said who and what you are. the name given to you was based upon what type of spirit you possessed. Right? So when we look at, you know, why are we not Negro black colored? Because the name given to you is based upon what type of spirit you possess. Right? So the individuals of the Moorish nation that were had the maroon mentality, right? They got the real label, right? Of black, Negro, colored, etc. Right? When we look at even Moors who were passive and didn't sell out, right? During when they were kicking the Moors out of Spain, right? Those Moors were labeled Morisco, right? Because the frequency that they vibrated on was that you're not gonna fight. You'll compromise. So if you're gonna compromise, then we'll label you as a compromised individual, right? Because you know, if you compromise, that means you're kind of working for them.
Right, because you're not working against them.
Because you're not working against them. Whereas the ones that are working against them, they have to completely disconnect them from knowing anything with regard to the birthrights issue and all that, right? So always remember that the name given to you was based upon what type of spirit you possess, right? Ancestrally. So when we come into the Moorish movement and we are, you know, Johnson, Jeffries, and whatever, and we're gonna do a name correction, right? The name has to be based upon the spirit of who you are. So if you're gonna call yourself, you know, Sultan Bey, right? But the attributes of the Sultan don't line up with who you are, you might get yourself caught up in stuff that you don't know you're getting yourself caught up in because you think that, well, you know, a free national name, I call myself whatever. Not realizing that the name is based on who you are. Right? So if you're calling yourself Sultan Bey, but you don't have the attributes of a Sultan in your DNA, then that's pretty much fraud. Right?
Could it be likened to giving yourself the title as Ali?
It's the same thing, right? Right? Because beyond what Noble Drew Ali said, right? If you look up that particular term, right? If you look up that name, that attribute, right? If you look up that attribute, that's a divine attribute. You know what I mean? So that's why and you could understand why Noble Drew Ali said, you know, don't call your children by that name. Because that name carries some frequency with it. That if you don't know what you're doing, you know, you might say something and somebody gets struck by lightning or something like that. Because you have that name, you're using that name, and you don't recognize the power of it. Right? So and again too, indigenous has always referred to themselves by ways of tones, right? And vibrations of expression. Right? So if we're referring to ourselves by ways of tones and vibration, one, we're talking about universal laws, right? We're talking about metaphysics, high science, etc. We're not talking about just, you know, what you're called, or, you know, because you do a certain thing, right? We're talking about the frequency that you yourself are on, the hertz you vibrate on, right? Determines how, when you walk in that court as Sultan Bey, are they gonna throw all their stuff down and bow to you, or are they gonna give you a harder time than if you called yourself John Smith Bey? right? So it's a thin line, if you will, you know, with regard to understanding when we know who we are and people who want to put a claim on us to say who we are. Because they win if you don't know who you are. If you don't know what vibration of expression you yourself vibrates on, when you come on this side, because people like to come into this and then they bring the nigger mentality with them into this. Right? When that immediately that cancels out your position.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like this sister that we know right now, right? She's in, where the hell is she at? I can't remember. She's somewhere out there, right? And she has a big case right now, like huge case, right? 5, 6 other people involved. Some people took deals. Some people are, you know, parole or whatever like that. They gotta go see their whatever. They got lawyers or whatever. She's the only one in the whole thing that isn't going that angle of getting a lawyer, etc. Case been going on since 2012.
Wow.
They can't move just because she's really a sincere individual, right? But her friends are niggers, right? And that thin line, you know, got her caught up because people who she trusted, doing business with and all this type of stuff, took deals. They say, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna do my 1 year and I'm out of this situation.
Was there some, not to say it matters, but it probably does, was there some negative stuff that was going on to begin with, or she just caught up? You know how?
Yeah, just caught up.
So just
caught up. Her herself wasn't involved in anything negative.
Oh, I see, but just the way they throw the mud on the wall.
Just because she was chilling with these people.
Yeah.
Throwing mud on the wall.
I get, yeah.
You can't get out of
well,
I mean,
part of it's the responsibility of her to make sure not to be hanging around with people like that. The other, and to further that, she can't leave it up to them to help her out.
Right.
Like, so they wouldn't be the kind to say, "Hey, I don't think it's good for you to hang out with us right now because we're not doing well, right?"
Exactly. But I mean, and then you know the other part of it is that they didn't even tell her that they were doing dirt.
Right.
It didn't even come up that there was dirt going on.
Right.
You know that. Well, you know, yeah, you're coming into business with us, but you know, know that, you know.
That's right.
When you go behind this thing right here,
something's going on in there that you may not.
There's not no temple or whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we got stuff going on out there.
Right.
You know, so they get caught up in whatever. You know what I mean? And case can't move, right? But it's because she, you know, in her family. Moors in her family or whatever, you know what I mean? There's people in her direct family that were members of the temple and all that type of stuff.
Wow.
Right? That she, you know, it's not that it was common because nobody ever talked about it. Why? Because, you know, the Moors is supposed to, you know, 1492, ain't nothing called that anymore. You know, after 1929, ain't nothing called that anymore. You see newspapers out here, are they talking about these Moorish cults and all that type of stuff? People went underground with this information, right? And some people, like when we spoke with Brother Casanova, right, and he's talking about the connection between the gangs and Moorish science, especially, you know, like Milwaukee, Chicago, these places, you know, where the Moorish movement was prominent. You know, the gangs were teaching Moorish science to gang members. But it wasn't about protecting the nation, it was about protecting that gang. Right? They took it out of the perspective of, you know, nationhood to ganghood.
Well, one and the
but
same.
They know all of the principles. They know Moorish science more than Moors.
Right, it's true.
You know what I mean? Like, they know more science more than Moors, but what the gangbangers don't know is that that's more science. That's not some gang code that they adopted or some guy founded their gang. You know what I mean? Like, Noble Ali's the gang leader. Well, they never told nobody about that. They just told them the concept, the principles, the teachings. Like, gang members have Qurans and stuff like that. You You know what I mean? But it's not presented to them with a national mindset. It's presented to them with black, Negro, colored mindset. Because that's who has it. You know? So when you get to like Chief Mustafa and these people, right? Keystone, Jeff Fort, and these people, so-called gang leaders that, you know, were pushing more science, but they didn't try to put that on niggers. They were actually using that to reform them. Those people got taken out of circulation.
Oh, of course.
Because you're not teaching these people about, you know, they're supposed to be the next Mufti force and stuff like that. Which is really what it is, as far as the gang members are concerned. Right? Because remember, like we're talking about, everybody has a vibration. Everybody has a frequency where they are. There's guys that are the teachers, and then that's what they do. And then there's guys that, you know, are the ones that are gonna go sign up to go in the military. That's their mentality. It's not even nothing they're gonna think about. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm gonna go sign up because I like to shoot or whatever, right? That's a frequency. You know what I mean? So those individuals, you know, that are vibrating and expressing who they really are, right? There's a Moorish connection to that. You know what I mean? Like, just like, you know, again, the example of the gang member, right? That individual might not be somebody who's down with selling drugs and all that stuff, right? He might not be he might be the guy who just in the back, you know what I mean? Nobody doesn't know, but he's the biggest killer of everybody. All these guys saying that they're the killer ain't nothing compared to this guy who's quiet, that nobody questions or asks no questions about or what. They just know that guy's back there. Who's that guy back there? Oh, don't worry about him. He's just a guy back there. You know what I mean? The individual picked up on that frequency to know that, yo, you're the guy who's going to be that guy back there. That's just going to stand there. The shades on, nobody can see where you're looking at or whatever. You know what I mean? So we looked at things in our ancient state of mind. We looked at things beyond the apparent, what's in our face. You know, and we didn't let anybody define our reality. Our reality was defined by ourselves. Right? All indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, did not and do not have high cheekbones, slanted eyes, or big eyes, or copper skin, or woolly black hair. It is difficult for society to accept Moors as being native or indigenous to the Western Hemisphere region because society has been brainwashed with fabricated fake images of indigenous Moorish people in America. Most reservation Indians were carefully selected by the U.S. government to occupy reservations when reservations were first established. The U.S. government, for the most part, selected pale-skinned Indians or Hollywood version Indians to occupy U.S. government-established reservations. The U.S. and then remember when we do U.S. / Canada, right? So the U.S. / Canada government selected a certain physiological type of native, aka Indian, to promote to the world as this is the real Indian, as well as this is how a real Indian looks. The dark-skinned native indigenous Moors of the Western Hemisphere were reclassified during the 1700s and 1800s as Negroes, blacks, coloreds, etc. Pale-skinned Indians came about as a result of the aboriginal dark-skinned Moor breeding with pale-skinned Europeans. A light-skinned Moor born from this union would again breed with a pale-skinned European. Thus, the progeny of this union would become more pale or genetically recessive after centuries of this breeding process. Eventually, produce the so-called Pale Indians in America. The Moors who did not mix their seeds still endure. Most have been reclassified as Negroes, Black, African Americans by the US/Canada government. Certain Moors were given an ultimatum: go to Oklahoma and be Indians on the reservation, or stay where you're at and be reclassified as Negro, Black, and Colored. Most Moorish Americans who were classified as Negroes, Blacks, and Colored during the 1700s and 1800s have found themselves in the 20th and 21st century again reclassified as Negroes, Black Americans, and African Americans. The Moors who embraced the Spanish culture during the colonial era, either by choice or by force, have found themselves engulfed or assimilated into Spanish culture and Spanish language. Now most of them have lost the knowledge of themselves and their true Moorish identity. They too have been reclassified as Latino or Hispanic. Most early European writers during the 1400s to the 1800s, including pale-skinned Jews, all agreed that the heathen savage of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, throughout the Americas were without a doubt or contradiction descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. The titles Negro, Black, Colored, and African American are fake, inappropriate European colonized titles to keep Moorish people of America under a spell of ignorance. Right?
So you're saying that they confirmed the fact that these pale-skinned Indians were from us.
Right. Like, verified.
Right.
Okay? And not only verified by, you know, the fact that these people exist, but as well, when we talk about the phenotype of these people, what also has to be included is, you know, when we say the Moors slept with the Europeans and created these Indians, right? We're also talking about Moors from Asia. Not just Moors that were in America only. Moors from Asia that were dark skinned, came over here on the Bering Strait or whatever, right? They too had relations. That's why some of those, like when you look at Eskimo, right? Eskimo doesn't look like no native Indian or cowboy and Indian. Right? They don't look the same. Right? So, you know, the jurisdiction of the Moors is wide and vast. The jurisdiction of the Moors extends across the Great Atlantic, even into South Central America, right? Pacific Islands, right? Philippines. You know, we have the picture up there. Moro, not Filipino. So everybody knows what's up as far as the name of these people across the world. These dark-skinned people, right? And also too, remember, like, you know, a friend talking about, oh, the Mexicans could cross the border and stuff like that, right? What Mizraim was breaking down to me on the phone was that in Mexico, it's not a border in Mexico that separates Mexico from U.S. There's a fence.
Just a fence.
That's all. Unmanned fence. Right?
But that's how it is in Canada too.
Right?
It's, in Vermont and Quebec, there's an unmanned, it's actually a street. Border goes right through the street, like a residential street.
Yeah.
Like you can live on the US side, literally.
Yeah.
And you go across the street.
Across the street is so-called the Canada.
And it's unmanned. Like they can have like cars that drive by just to check and see you and run across.
Right, yeah.
It's not a big thing.
But it's not.
Literally like your street. Like you can cross the street
and you're there. Right. You know? So you know, like something like that brings up, then how come they don't have what they got at Niagara there?
Yeah.
if you know, if this is the border or whatever, right? Then we get into, okay, well, if they don't have that there, then that means that their position isn't really that stable.
That's right.
They have faults, right?
I was thinking about this today too, though. I was thinking that all of this sort of distraction with nationhood and all that stuff, it's really just put there, yet again, sort of in a cloak of like religion, where you're focused on other stuff. Because at the top, there probably is no real family division. It's just about finance. It's just about trading of this or that or energy responses, right? So when you talk about borders and stuff, those are things just set up to sort of control the masses,
right,
or to funnel the money, or to keep a track of the money.
Give an appearance of.
Keep it right, because on any one of those islands, there's probably another way around. Like, you know, if we had a plane, you could fly yourself down. If you had a boat, you could sail around, right? So all of those divisions are ones made up in our minds when we're being controlled by them.
By occupying force.
Like you're saying, you could walk across the border if you're on foot. You know, up river there, maybe we could have swam across. Right? Just those kind of, right? We're limited by what we feel.
What we feel is called locomotion or
and all that kind of. And then if they put the value on what it is, then they put two guys there to sort of stop those charges. Then that's what happens, right? You know, I'm thinking about this now. If we went to that place, we could have just driven across.
Not only that, like there's a museum. That if you walk into this museum, part of the building is in America and the other part is in Canada, and it's for real. Like it's in Quebec, Vermont. Like
I've heard about the two spots, but I'm just saying that's sort of surreal too, right? Yet again, like there's a decision that this piece of land is not really mine and not really yours. You know what I mean? Like
right on the border.
Like how is that right? Who would create that?
Have a red line in the building.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Who would create such a thing?
A white line.
Right.
It's crazy.
And then that's what we're up against. Right? These guys. Yeah, the holy and divine prophet Noble Drew Ali from North Carolina is a Moorish Cherokee who came and cleaned up those fake titles such as Negroes, blacks, colored, etc. that they have been imposed upon the indigenous Moorish people. Praise Allah for such a great spirit and man. It has become quite profitable to brainwash the indigenous Moorish people in America into thinking that Africa is their native land. There is a campaign currently underway by US/Canada government and the US/Canada government-sponsored natives that preaches a doctrine that says that the so-called black Indians of the Western Hemisphere is a result of African mixture and has not always dwelled in the Western Hemisphere. Most so-called black Americans, or so-called African Americans, when asked if any natives are in their family, at least 95% will respond with yes. In addition to this, most black Americans, so-called black Americans, are also able to give you the name of the tribe that their relative came from. Most so-called black Americans or so-called African Americans find it difficult to accept themselves as indigenous Moors to the Western Hemisphere because of the programmed, fabricated images of Moorish people. Fake images of their own indigenous Moorish ancestors have been routinely drilled into the psyche since birth. The Moorish image does not register within their psyche because of the fake imagery programming that the US/Canada government has instilled into the minds of how Moors look. The spirit of so-called black Americans or so-called African Americans tells them one thing, while the programmed fake image of their own ancestors say another. This all leads to inner conflict. Right? So when we hear the term of people coming into the movement, oh, how come there's so much infighting against the Moors, and why is Moors and why come Moors don't have stuff together? It's because of inner conflict. Not the individuals, but within themselves. The conflict between their higher and lower self. That Noble Drew Ali said we need to fix before we go out there and do anything. Know the truth about your nationality and birthrights and all that, but know your higher self and lower self. That's a lesson. right? Why? Know your higher self and lower self so you can dissolve this inner conflict that's going on, right? You know, and you can verify that is, you know, what the issue is. The issue is that there's, you know, when people have gone through whatever that, you know, transatlantic slave trade, whatever, all that stuff, right? The things that were done to the people do have an effect on their psyche, right? Post-traumatic stress and all that, right? That stress will cause them to act according to their mind state under that stress. You know, this is why, you know, all these gurus and you know, prophets and whatever always have their little pilgrimage where they go somewhere, you know, 40 days, 40 nights or whatever, and you know, they straighten their stuff out before they go out there and go do something. Because that inner conflict would make you destroy yourself before the war even starts. Right? The spirit of so-called Black Americans or so-called African Americans tells them one thing. That's the higher self, right? While the programmed fake image of their own ancestors says another. Right? So if man is Allah in flesh, right? Then that means that the influence of not being Allah in flesh is external. We're not supposed to have no evil in us if we're Allah in flesh. We're not supposed to be tainted. But because of the programmed fake image of our own ancestors, the lies, the everything else that's external that we ingest, we now create these personages within our own being.
Create our own demons.
Right, we create our own demons. You know, just like schizophrenia or whatever. You know what I mean? You create a dude who you are in your mind. You know, and you're going around that you're this guy.
Yeah.
You know, and then you wake up and you know you kill 500 people. You know, right? The inner conflict. Right? The U.S. school system and the media have been the two biggest giants behind programming into the masses fake fabricated images of Moorish indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. Moors, or indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, built pyramids and pyramid bounds just like the ancient Egyptians. This synonymous comparison of both cultures from opposite sides of the world is because they both were genetically linked. Right? How? We already know, but we'll go through it. During the time of Pangaea, a Greek word used that means all one, all of the continents of the planet Earth were one landmass, one mass of land. People lived and thrived during the time of Pangaea. This is a large explanation as to why pyramid builders in the Eastern Hemisphere and pyramid builders in the Western Hemisphere have cultures that are incredibly synonymous. The continents continue to move. Some move 4 inches a year. The continents will one day become one mass of land again. The continents are currently separated at this time. However, the genetic link of being from Pangaea never parted. The U.S. constitutional government is a plagiarized copy of the Moorish government system. The Moorish nation, and better known to some as the Iroquois nation. The so-called founding fathers did not find anything. They went to the Moorish nation seeking assistance to break away from the chief back in England, King George III. The Moorish nation taught them their system of government. The only part that the so-called founding father left out was the matriarchy. The true Moorish nation was ruled by Moabites, or yet Moorish women. Most Moors later found themselves seduced by European lifestyle, customs, and traditions. When the so-called American Revolutionary War broke out, many Moors found themselves fighting against their own kinsmen. Some Moors sided with the British, while other Moors sided with the colonial rebels, aka Americans. After the Moorish nation helped set up the colonial government, United States, and in addition to helped to sponsor military support of the new colonial government, Moors continued to fight and war amongst themselves as they did before. And after Europeans set foot upon the western shores, Moors were not conquered by Europeans or the so-called white man. Moors had a rich history of intertribal warfare among each other that continued before and after European arrival. The intertribal warfare that exists amongst Moors in the Western Hemisphere was so great that it left them in a state of impotency, with impotency setting in after years and years of clan warfare. In addition to the attraction of European trinkets, customs, and traditions, and the worshipping of the God named Jesus, all assisted in paving the way for European occupancy of the Moorish lands, their spirits, and their minds. So it's a theme, right? It's a theme that we were the ones that caused everything that we see going on that we're complaining about. It wasn't a situation of, Europeans came over here and they conquered us.
But why would we help them set up, though?
Say that again?
Why would we help them set up? Like, we help them set up.
Right, well, you know what?
Putting us down. Like,
the setting up. Now remember that during the time, right, when you check the treaties, right, between the Moors, the treaties between the Moors in let's say before the 1700s, the treaties with the Moors to should they take European boats or not, should they put Europeans in slavery or not, right? Many Moors were against the setting up of the colonials, right? And the position that the Sultan took in doing that was to put an end to the wars, right? It wasn't for one side's benefit or another side's benefit. It was strictly to eliminate this karmic thing, that this cause and effect that just keeps happening for generations between these so-called people that don't have a home and the landlords. Right? Because remember, the sultans the sultan that set that up, he's coming out of the empires or the dominions of individuals who are under the jurisdiction of the Moors that had certain power, right? To do certain things, to say certain things, to have an influence, right? But the issue with them is that, there was infiltration into that union, right? So when you hear like Kennedy talk and you hear Roosevelt talk, but those two guys were presidents, but one of them's talking completely corporate, and then another one is talking on a higher level, right? Where it's not about the government's rule over people. It's about the people being in charge and ruling over the government, right? So it took a lot for that arrangement to be made out, right? But remember, like the Europeans who those arrangements were made with, the job was for them to stick to the 13 colonies on the eastern seaboard. They weren't supposed to be going anywhere else, right? But you know how they end up going other places. Infiltration. People violating the treaty, going where they're not supposed to go, in land that's not theirs. You know, and if somebody's telling you, well, you know, your jurisdiction is that closet right there, you know, and one day you stick your head out the closet, nobody's around, and you're seeing that, you know, there's all out here. You could actually open the door, go outside, go down the street, go up the street, and your jurisdiction is not just there. You're gonna go explore.
Yeah, but no one called them on it. No one tried seen them sticking their head out.
Because it was set up based on us coming out of power. So ain't nothing that we're gonna say. If they really decide we're gonna go somewhere, go do some stuff, right? They're gonna go do that. Because just like you're saying, there's nobody there to police them and say you can't go here and you can't go there. You know, it's no different than, you know the British are coming, the British are coming. That was Moors. That wasn't the Europeans.
That was the Moors.
That was Moors.
Paul Revere.
Right? Like when we look at it's okay, it's like we were talking about last week, right? Vietnam War, right? The Vietnam War.
Yeah.
You have Muhammad Ali saying, I ain't going. But that's my brothers and sisters over there and I'm not going. Right? Then there's brothers that went. And they went and they were able to come back home while Europeans weren't coming back home. Right? Because those Viet Cong over there saw that this was their brothers and sisters that were coming to fight them. And they gave them a bribe. While they murdered all the European soldiers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like there's stories of European soldiers getting murdered in their sleep. In their tent. In Vietnam. Right? But there's brothers in the tent too. And they didn't get touched.
So we set it all up for them, knowing that we were gonna come out of government,
right?
For them to be custodians.
Right, because making them custodians, we also knew that we would come right back around and be in control again. You know, that's why when you know, we can say that, you know, oh well, why they do that and how come they set up these arrangements with the European when they know that this was gonna happen or whatever like that, right? But you know, when you really analyze the connection that Moors have to the so-called United States of America government and the setting up of the whole thing, you realize that you know, they set up something tight. You know, the problem is that the people don't know that it's theirs. Like all these people that claim, you know, to be chematologists, Egyptologists, etc. Right? You're gonna show them a pyramid, right? The Great Seal, and they're gonna say that that's not theirs. They're gonna say that belongs to some secret society. But they'll agree that they built the pyramids. Yeah, our people built the pyramids. Okay, well, what's the issue? Why you claim your government then? If you built the pyramids, well, no, because you know Illuminati has that, and they're. What are you talking? Illuminati doesn't have nothing. You never see so-called Masons talk under that. They never hold it up. They never, you know, they might have a square and compass with a G on their car. You never see them with the pyramid seal on their car as Masons. Never.
Can't do it.
It's not their stuff. But if they can get people to believe through, you know, the plagiarized whatever and tell the stories, you know, having them tell the stories, right, then we'll give it up without them even making a claim. And then when we give it up, then they go claim it. Right? So it's not like, you know, it's like it's not like they are, you know, these evil people and, you know, they're trying to take over and we need to martial law and all this. Like, that's not what it's about. That's just to get us away from recognizing that you guys don't even have nothing around here. You guys been bankrupt since '33. You talking about governments and all that stuff when you guys bankrupt. But, you know, again, if we don't make the claim, then they're gonna make a claim. And their claim is gonna, and if you allow them to make a claim, then you're not gonna have anything. Because that's not the real ones that we had the contract with. Those are the infiltrators that we deal with. The ones that set up the corporate governments. Those aren't the same guys that, you know, where they say the founding fathers and all that. That's not Jefferson and, you know what I mean, Washington and these people. You know, those are people that took over something that they didn't have any right to take over. But the only way they could do it is by, you know, labeling the Moors on these different names, and then they slide in their little insurgents and their little allies or whatever like that, you know, to play that role, you know. You know, they get the so-called Indian to play the role of the indigenous people, and then we turn to black people all of a sudden, and then we lose everything. Then on top of that, we have his religion, and then we have his Bible, then we have his God, and then we have his food, and then we have his education, we have his hospitals, we have their economic system, we have their military system, we have their everything, right? When, you know, everything that they have is only because we gave it to them. So it's not even their stuff. You know, it's just like Europe. Europe doesn't belong to no Europeans. Some sharp brothers and sisters over there will go over there and reclaim all that stuff over there. Same thing like what Moors are doing here. Start claiming your estate. You know, like when they say, well, you know, if I get a nationality card, you know, what's it gonna say on it or whatever? It's gonna say you're Moor. That's what it's gonna say. Because that's the jurisdiction. You know, American is because we're in America. You know,
Americana,
right? Because the claim could be made over there too, especially if they got all those crests over there with Moors on them and all that. You know, it's a documented fact in Europe that the Moors rule over there.
because the claim could be made in Spain as well too.
All those places.
In place, Spain.
I mean, if the Filipinos are making a claim, Moro not Filipino,
Yes.
to the Philippines. Yeah. That one right there.
Yeah.
Moro not Filipino.
No, straight up. The picture.
The picture.
Oh, picture. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So if they know that they're not Filipino,
Okay.
because that's a fraud.
So Venezuelan people are the same thing?
Same thing. Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Cubans, Dominicans, Haitians. All those are the slave brands.
That explains a lot of things.
Because everybody, literally everybody's Moorish. Everybody's Moorish.
Well, and even the European is an amalgamation
Yeah.
of an experiment from the Moorish gene.
From the
right?
Moorish. So he's still Moorish, even though he's European. He might not be full blood, but
It's interesting though, you know what, I was listening to, I think one of your It was on one of the beginnings of your CD there, talking about how some people have souls and other people's don't.
Yeah.
So you started to think that some of that is where a lot of this is at.
Right. Especially nowadays.
Huh?
Especially nowadays.
Yeah, like all of that stuff has come back and you're really just dealing with a lot of people that aren't spiritually connected.
Right. You know what's a good one for that? Sarah Connor Chronicles.
What, the Terminator?
The Terminator
Right.
TV show?
Oh, the show.
Yeah, the show.
Okay.
Show? Crazy.
Alright.
Yeah.
Alright.
The show is something to see.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, Sarah Connor Chronicles. CTV had it on.
Is it?
Yeah, I borrowed the DVDs from my brother yesterday. I was watching it last night.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty heavy. But you know, but they're going from the angle of the soulless people are the Terminators.
Which is the Europeans, because in Reiki, they teach you that all people with melanin have the soul, and people who don't have the spirit.
Right. You know, it's interesting stuff in there. Nika Jack Bey, also known as Nigger Jack, was a Moor. Islam fan. We'll talk, yeah. This ancestor led raids against the colonial rebel army, the United States, during the colonial rebel uprising, the United States Revolutionary War. He fought alongside the British Tories. His hideout was a cave in the vicinity of what is known as Chattanooga, Tennessee. In the state of Georgia, in the region known as Cobb County, there is a park, a road, and a creek named after this great warrior. The terms Negro and colored were not only applied to Moors to psychologically and spiritually remove them from their lands, these colonized titles were also applied to so-called American Indians who were incorporated into the slave market. Right? Try that again. The terms Negro and colored were not only applied to Moors to psychologically and spiritually remove them from their lands. These colonized titles were also applied to so-called American Indians who were incorporated into the slave market. European writers took advantage of many facts about Moors who owned slaves. European fake images of Moors were promoted showing so-called blacks owning slaves. Art paintings were displayed showing distorted images of Moors in the Western Hemisphere owning dark people as slaves, who in most cases were also Moorish. The fake images of indigenous Moorish people, which usually displays them as having pale skin, showing them owning slaves whose skin is always depicted as being dark. Europeans helped to create a consciousness which sublimely said that slaves and Negroes are synonymous. When most people hear or read about slave, simultaneously, the image of a dark-skinned person appears in their mind. By showing fake pale-skinned natives owning dark-skinned people, helped to create the illusion that so-called Indians and Moors are two separate races, when in essence, they are the same people. The U.S. government and U.S. government-sponsored natives are preaching a doctrine that says so-called black people became Indian or native people as a result of acquiring citizenship with different indigenous nations of the Western soil, as to say that no dark-skinned people lived in the Western Hemisphere up until the transatlantic slave trade. That tactic is exercised in attempts to discredit indigenous Moors from claiming their true homeland, and sublimely supports the ridiculous notion that every dark-skinned person that is interpreted as Negroes, blacks, are from Africa. Right? And then this is what we were talking about with Kevin Annette.
Yeah.
Right? That yes, from a spiritual perspective, right? Yeah, he knows who he has to defend.
Yeah.
He knows who the victim is, right?
Certain of which who is.
Right? But the factors that are being analyzed by him are distorted because of who he's listening to about who the native people are. When he should be really going out there and fighting for some reparations for so-called black people, for being denationalized of their native status, and it being put on these people who he's defending that aren't really the Aboriginal people. Right? So this is where it comes out to issues with the claim that he's making. Because if you're gonna go sue somebody,
These separate facts, right?
you gotta have the fact. You gotta know who the parties are that are involved. And if you're saying that the Indians, you know, and if you go, I'm sure you go through the thing, that's what they're talking about. The Indians, the Indians, the Six Nations, you know, and then they're talking about all the First Nations, I mean, and then they're talking about all these tribes, different tribes of, you know, chiefs and, you know, whatever, when all that is a fraud. Figment of somebody's imagination that became real. You know? And again, not knocking.
It's a legit lawsuit. It's just that
Super legit.
there's no basis to it, because you're basically suing suing for a dead entity.
Yeah.
Can't happen.
And you're suing a dead entity.
Yeah.
That's probably why he's on the run.
See?
Right?
I mean, that gets into the Dred Scott case.
Right, that too, right.
Right? Like he said he's an African slave, or he's a freed slave with the name Dred Scott.
Yeah.
It's not possible. Right? It's a plaintiff in error right there.
Plaintiff in error. Most so-called blacks today refuse to accept that they are Moorish American because they have fallen victim to the spell of fake images. If their hair is not straight or curly, and their cheekbones are not high, nor their eyes slanted, or their skin light or reddish hue, they simply decide that they are black from Africa. According to all true divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are the human race descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan. Africa is a modern name for Amexem. There is no one who is able to change Moors from the descendant nature of their forefathers unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator Allah himself. What our ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. As for those who want to trace the Moors of Spain to Spain or to Spanish or Spaniards, be my guest, do so, and find the trace comes back to those of melanated skin. Upon visiting those geographic locations or talking to people there, you will find they have recorded this as historical facts. These Moors, forcibly converted by the Crusaders to Christendom, were referred to as Moriscos. As long as the people who call themselves black, Negro, colored, etc. don't know their true identity and history, they will find themselves locked out of civil and social order and or possessions of authority of any true or appreciable degree. One will also never know when they are reading about themselves. The interesting thing is that the rest of the world does know, and they are waiting for them to figure it out and honor their fathers and mothers. So everybody has taken the position of honoring the Moors, right? You know, we did the lecture with Brother Sheldon, right? Germany came with pictures and pictures and pictures showing people, yeah, they got statues, castles, whatever, in Germany about the Moors, right? There's Moors in Switzerland, linked us, like, yeah, they got statues and buildings and whatever, streets named after the Moors, right? Like we got, you know, Filipinos or whatever, you got the Mexicans coming into this information, right? That they're Moors, not Mexicans, and they're Moors, not Cubans, and that they're Moors, not Puerto Ricans, right? You have all these Moors in the UK waking up right now, right? Finding documented facts of the history of the Moors, where they are. And why are they finding this stuff? Because all the time that we've been doing research, studying or whatever, we're looking for black people. We're looking for Negro people, we're looking for African people, we're looking for, you know, black Africans and ancient black whatever, which you're not going to find in no history books. It's not there. And then, you know, after searching under those names and we find nothing, we say Europeans stole everything. Right? When the Moors, right? When the Moors were the ones that gave it to them. You know? And they know this, right? Just like, as long as the people who call themselves black, Negro, colored, etc., don't know their true identity and history, they will find themselves locked out of civil and social order and or positions of authority of any true or appreciable degree. One will also never know when they are reading about themselves.
That's the,
you know what I mean?
that's the trick. It's
Yeah.
right there.
You know, when people talk about, yeah, you know, the Arabs sold us into slavery, and you know that, you know, why are we gonna pale Arabs and all? Yeah, the Arabs were Moors. Arabs weren't no people who we're seeing today that they say they're Arabs.
Yeah.
Arabs were dark-skinned people. Why is there a slave fort in Ghana that an Arab built? That's pale. You know what I mean? Like, we gotta accept our involvement in this. You know what I'm saying? Not only did we slave the European, we enslaved our own too. You know? And it's a reality that we just have to accept. But you're not gonna accept it if you're in a status of the people who got conquered. You're always gonna be in denial, like damn alcoholic or somebody. Crackhead or something. No, I'm a mayor, you know, I'm not a crackhead. Right? Well, you're a crackhead. And you're alcoholic. Right? You need to admit that to yourself. Go get some help or something. Right? Most interstate highways and roads in what is known as the United States of America used to be at one time Moorish trails and pathways that led to Moorish towns and Moorish cities. The paths were widened and laced with concrete and renamed as interstate highways by the Pale Ones. Most cities and towns today in what is known as the United States sits on top of ancient Moorish cities and towns that were there first. You know? So like when we go to like Spadina and them places, and cobbled streets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You go to certain places in the West End, and obviously these guys didn't pave this. These guys didn't make this right here.
Yeah.
This is something that's been here for how long? I don't know how long, but I know that's been here. I know that road's been here. You know what I mean? I know, you know, like even when we go around the city, right? When we go around the city, it's not much. When we go around the city and we see, you know, all these streets, roads, and all this type of stuff, you know, and we don't register that, you know, there's no way they built all these roads out here. You know what I mean? There's no way that they built all these roads out here. No way. You know what I mean? It can't be that they built them. Something had to be there first. You know what I mean? That piece work. Something had to be there first to let them have a guideline. You know what I mean? Of where we're gonna put certain stuff.
Template.
A template, right? You know, dirt roads is a template. It's no different than before they started building up Pickering and those places there. You know what I mean? When you used to go out there when Pickering was grass.
Fam.
Literally. You know what I'm saying? You know, there are little past stuff that are roads right now. You know what I mean? They guys didn't cut through those mountains and stuff like that. That stuff was already there. People were already there, did that already. All they did was just widen it. No different than, you know, we go to You go to somebody's house and, you know, they have a little fence, backyard, and then there's a little trail going to the other side.
Everybody used
Because everybody used that. And then eventually they're gonna come and then pave that and say, oh yeah, sidewalk, you know, and put a street there, say, oh yeah, you know, we're gonna call this, you know, Kevin Annette Street because he helped people and whatever, and when not giving no acknowledgement to the people whose street that was before, that called it something, because it had to be called something.
Yeah.
You know, by the people who were there before. You know what I mean? Right? In most cities and towns, in what is now known as the United States, there remains hundreds of thousands of Moors buried under the concrete as a result of casualties of war. The Moors did not only use paths and trails as a means of transportation on the surface, but also used the underground cave tunnel system. Right? And the underground cave tunnel system is how they have all these sewers and subways and all this stuff. They have this big machine or whatever. Yeah, we'll put the machine in the ground, we're gonna go drill something. And machines just go in there, just going through the hole that's already there. You know, and they make it look good. You know, reinforce it with some concrete and whatever, you know what I mean? You know, right? Shut down Eglinton for 5-8 years while they build this, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Right? Taking all these bodies, you know? You notice now that, you know, the fences, depending on where they're building, the fences are higher, and it's not the see-through fence. You know, they have the little thing that goes around it, or they put up the wood fence where they tell people, oh, yeah, post no bills or whatever like that. But it's a big, you know what I mean? Just a wall. Like how they have like downtown when they were building Trump Tower and stuff like that. No, they have a wall. Why do you guys have a wall? Why just put up a little fence like you're digging?
They don't want you to see what's going on.
What are you guys digging up that you're hiding? You know what I mean? All types of artifacts. All types of things that, you know, proves that there's been people here. You know? But if the people find that out, then the game's up. You know? Because the majority of stuff they're pulling up look like us. Bronze statues and stuff like that. Moors revealed, taught, and navigated Europeans through the underground cave tunnel system during the 16th through 19th centuries. Moors migrated from their ancestral land, in which is now known as North America, in much older ancestral lands in the Mexican, Central, and South American regions. This exodus was a result of the pale-skinned European invasions. The divine origin of the Asiatic nations, the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America, need to learn to love instead of hate and to know of their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for teaching and instructing of all Moorish Americans, etc. Mexicans are Americans. Mexican is derived from the Old Moorish word amexum, meaning the mixing. It identifies the characteristics of the land, the great melting pot. It is ludicrous how one might say there are so many Mexicans in Texas or California, etc. When Mexicans are indigenous to the land, the colonists are not indigenous to the land, they are European. They are not white people. White is not a national identity, just as black is not. However, we have gone along with the colors of identity game and allowed or accepted them as being white and we being black, and others being light-skinned black colored people or dark-skinned black colored people, etc. This practice is unheard of in the human family. The colonist identity with the European states, however, this is not Europe. Natal nationality origins apply to all people in all continents across the globe. Many Moors went to Europe to receive pale-skinned education. Many Moors not only attended European colleges and universities, but also enrolled into European pale-skin warfare and taught Europeans their own method of warfare. Many Moors who thoroughly indoctrinated into European education and religion came among the Moors and helped the European colonize their own brothers and sisters as they do today. They have become thoroughly indoctrinated into European lifestyle, took on European names and titles such as military officers, clergymen, interpreters, or just plain businessmen. Moors that the European have branded slaves with misnomers of black, Negroes, colored, etc., the colonists' demos democracy are the foreign corporations that are colorable running a pseudo-government. They are corporations. They are an unconscious nation, and they do not want the natural people to realize, discover, or become aware of the fact that they are the true foreigners who are not indigenous to this land. For such consciousness would establish the recognition of their alien status, thus their illegitimacy as government as Americans. This is why the occupying Europeans avoid the use of national names in literature. This is also why they are trying to make the driver's license a national identity card. They don't have a national identity card or a claim to this land. In addition, this is why they propagate colors as pseudo-identities of people, as if people were crayons or little boys and girls or minors, hence the political status of minorities. This is the reason for the social, political, legal term minority being applied to the people. The Moors, under all of their political names, ruled the entire world, but the descendants here were not even aware, as they may not be now with the war in Iraq. Those wars have always been between Christians and Muslims, Moors. So for one who seeks black history information, they will find it under that term as it simply never was. Prophet Noble Drew Ali is the founder of the Moorish Divine and National Movement, as well as the Moorish Science Temple of America or of the world. The beginning and foundation of Christianity began in Rome. The Roman nations founded the first church who crucified Jesus of Nazareth for seeking to redeem his people from under Roman yoke and law. Jesus himself was the true blood of the ancient Canaanites and Moabites and the inhabitants of Africa. We should always remember Moroccans, the modern name for Moabite, and Africa is the name for a Mexim, the true and divine name of Africa. Our Moorish nation has always honored and respected the matriarchal societies. Most Moorish sheiks are women, or better known as sheikhs. Moorish Asiatic from various dynasties, Shao Sang, and many other migrated from what is called Asia thousands of years ago to the regions known as South Central and North America. These Asiatic mixing in with the Moorish natives who were already occupying these lands. This explains why some indigenous Moors of the Western Hemisphere, aka Indians, have high cheekbones and slanted eyes. This type of image of the Moors of the Western shores has been widely promoted. Other Moors who do not possess these features were carved out of history to promote how Moors looked would not have been a balancing move for the colonizer.
But they're failing to tell people that, like, our ancestral lineage has slanted eyes, light eyes,
Right.
pointy noses.
Right.
It's just not broad noses.
Exactly. Some people teach that the Olmec migrated from the Nile region valley in East Africa to the Western Hemisphere. If this is true, they were only received by the Moorish natives who were already residing there. Many Moors who became indoctrinated into European lifestyles joined European orchestrated fraternities and secret societies, such as the Order of Freemasonry. The Moorish native Joseph Brant, better known as Kenu Umar Bey, right? So remember, Joseph Brant is supposed to be one of the Moors on this side, right? Better known as Kenu Umar Bey of the Moorish Iroquois nation, became a Freemason. Many of our Moorish brethren had blood ties to various Moorish clans in what is called Africa today. Many Moors navigated the oceans and had not lived in isolated communities as taught by the paleface in their school systems. During the early 1800s, certain Moors, so-called Indians, who went under the colonized titles of Negro and Colored, helped to establish settlements in the west coast of what is called Africa for other Moors. These Moors went under another title. They were also known as the Moorish elite. Always remember, there were 3 tribes of Moabites. They are El, Bey, and Ali tribes. The European Inquisitionist slaveholders forced their Anglo family cognomen upon the defeated Moors, branding them, thereby constituting an actionable claim of no men abandonment on part of the subjugated party. If one is researching history, they will run into empires and dynasties of the Moors. They will find that aristocrats were the Moors. The Europeans did not bring the aristocratic era life. They brought it over from Europe, where they were taught by the Moors. The information and history of the Moors in Europe is not hidden. Right? So it's not hidden over there.
I realize that.
Right? They know what's up in Europe with regard to our history.
Yeah.
With regard to Europe's connection to dark-skinned people, being, you know, the aristocracy. Right?
Who are the aristocrats? Or aristocrats? What is that?
Let's set it up.
Not in there?
I'll do my due diligence.
It's all good.
Check it out. So,
Gotta do this anyways. Aristocrat, a member of the nobility or aristocracy. A person having the tastes, opinions, manners, and other characteristics of an upper class. A person who advocates government by an aristocracy. Aristocracy, a hereditary, privileged, ruling class or nobility. Government by the nobility or by a privileged minority or upper class. A state or country having this form of government. Government by the best citizens. A state having such a government. Any group or class considered to be superior.
okay. Right? So that's us.
So that's us. In Europe. That they know. That the real nobility of Europe is us. Not you know, what we would consider, you know, Queen and all those people. Right? Which comes back again to that thing.
That same
Right? That okay, so you're gonna go sue
queen and
the queen, and she's not really the
aristocrat.
aristocrat. She's a slave that moved up to power.
Yeah, that put us up.
Right? Because they'll tell you that, you know, all the so-called European kings and queens of Europe during the Dark Ages were illiterate and didn't have shoes and didn't have clothes and didn't.
Yeah, they had the monks writing all their
Right?
all that kind of
You know what I mean? Right? There's a Moor always with them. You know what I mean? Trying to teach them government and all this type of stuff. Documented. That's what went down. You know what I mean? The truth about the Moorish identity and their massive contribution to civilization has been hidden and suppressed by the Inquisitionist agenda for world conquest. However, much of that history can still be extracted from the page of the books of history. Most buffalo soldiers were Moors,
Yeah.
dispatched by the U.S. Army to assist in colonizing and confiscation of other Moorish lands west of the Mississippi River. Reservation native Moors who didn't know the true history and who are also brainwashed by images by the pale-skinned race. Prophet Noah Ali was like a physician who gave us more science as to the true antidote to the mental poison of so-called black inferiority in a nation based upon notorious European supremacy. There are many misunderstandings being propounded about Noble Drew Ali and Moorish science. In this Judo-Christian world, Prophet Noble Drew Ali is the greatest thing that ever happened to the last Moors in the U.S.
Oh shit.
Noble Drew Ali was also a Moorish scientist pioneering the true effort in building a new Moorish nation. Moorish Science Temple of America, We the People, the constituency of the Moorish government. The name of the organization is cipher for Moorish America, a newly formed government in North America. How new is Moorish America? Moorish America was to be formed in 1865 with the passing of the 13th Amendment. This is what lawfully abolished slavery at that point. We were supposed to form our own government. Prophet Noble Drew Ali obtained the divine work. Are you grasping the depth of what is being conveyed here? The Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali came to us way back in 1913, working in the shadows to build our very own government, a nation within a nation. Does it sound impossible? The Prophet Noble Drew Ali introduced Islamism to the Moors, which is the continuation of the Egyptian mystery system. Why did he refer to it as Islamism? It is because the Islam brought by Prophet Muhammad of Arabia was an extension of the Egyptian mystery system. Islam means peace and is the cornerstone of teachings, just like the Egyptian Hotep means peace, and that is the cornerstone of the Egyptian mysteries. Our holy divine prophet Noble Drew Ali, divinely prepared by Allah, the one supreme sublime cosmic consciousness known in esotericism as the All. Another interesting point of Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali's life was the 1928 Pan American Conference. This was an international conference of America. Countries attended by dignitaries of South, Central, and South America. Secretary of State Charles Evans Hughes attended the conference representing the United States of America. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali was representing the Moors of Moorish America. According to a Time magazine article dated January 16, 1928, we find, at the Pan American Conference 1928, the mandate for the land of the Americans, North, Central, and South was given back to the Asiatic Moors. Basically, Prophet Noble Drew Ali regained the Moors their inheritance back through acquiring the proper ownership of the land. Remember, the European is only an occupying force. He is not indigenous to this land. He knows this, which is why Prophet Noble Drew Ali became a target for assassination after this conference. Mandates for land can only be given to indigenous inhabitants. According to what is recorded on the land mandate, the only beneficiary of this vast land trust is the Moors. Right? Just as if your parents died in a car accident and left the estate behind in the form of a written trust, the only individual or group that could inherit that estate are those parties mentioned by proper name within the said trust. Remember, this conference was in 1928. The European began looking for ways to destroy Prophet Noble Drew Ali, while panic and fear began to surface when international bankers got word of what Drew Ali had set in motion. They began to call in all their loans due at once, which put a strain on the stock market. Traders began to sell stock for fear of national instability, and this led to the great stock market crash of 1929. Prophet Noble Drew Ali was never a Freemason for all those who have ever made the claim. Notice they never produce a loose card, travel card, ledger, lodge name, or any other Freemasonic document with Noble Drew Ali's name on it. He said of his own words that he came to pull the covers off of secret societies. When you under and understand that Prophet Noble Drew Ali was an Egyptian adept, you will see why much of what he did might resemble Freemasonry. Always remember, Freemasonry is the mimicking of Moorish Egyptian culture and spiritual science. What Freemasonries are only allowed to do in secrecy in their lodges, Moors have as a part of their daily lives, which is the main reason why a Moor can wear a fez in the light of day. We as true Moors come forth to honor Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who revealed the truth about our nationality and birthrights in the way that the supreme source of all Allah has inspired us to. If we don't tell this Moorish story, we run the risk of the Moorish story not being told. If you know, then be what you know and teach what you know. I hope that this material and research will be of use to our brothers and sisters in the science, the magistrate and subject and social duties, to name a few of our divine instructions from our Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali, as we must always be conscious and cognizant that the problems of life of our people are largely socially and economic, but in a more profound sense they are moral and spiritual. Noble Drew Ali traveled to see President Woodrow Wilson, and here he sat and they challenged him. The Prophet raised his hand and light filled the room. Noble Drew Ali asked the President to teach his people, and they asked him, "Are you talking about the Negroes?" He replied, "There are no Negroes, colored folks, or black people, or Ethiopians. They are descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. I came for the flag of our ancient forefathers." The President stated, "It is not yet your time." Ali answered, "I have been appointed in due time by Allah, the great God of the universe." One of the President's counsels asked, "What kind of flag is your flag?" Drew Ali said, "You have it hidden in your vault." So they went to the vault room and began to bring out all kinds of modern day flags. The Prophet stated, "You know, it is much older than these." They began to dig deeper and came up with a red flag and said, "This is the flag of Morocco." The Prophet stated, "I am here for the Moorish flag, that which you called a cherry tree." Then dusted off an old flag that was red with a 5-point green star in the center. The President and Council stared at the exactness of the Holy Prophet. The President then said, "We have had them so long that they will not follow anyone else, and you take it and to tell them would be like putting pants on a mule." The Prophet stated, "My flock knows my voice." After a while, he left and returned to his people. For 12 years, Noble Drew Ali became a hard-working prophet of Allah. This man carried on the trust placed in him. Faced with great odds, the coming of the Prophet Drew Ali came at a time when members of his race began to understand the God degree, which God set him as ruler of the land. Yeah, there came Father Divine and Daddy Grace, God, Prophet Jones, etc., who came out of the earlier attempts to establish the faith of Ali. From his travels throughout this land, he knew that the sins being committed and being practiced by his people in the United States of America, as they were not living up to divine principles of honoring their fathers and mothers' names, issues, and principles. The Holy Prophet knew that it was a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and claim to names and principles that deluded them into mental slavery. As such, they are continuously practicing the thing which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. Alright, we'll just read outro. This work has been in a special way to psychologically and spiritually heal the mental and spiritual damages that have been done to the indigenous Moors of the Western Hemisphere, so-called Negroes, Blacks, and African Americans. It is also designed to make the indigenous Moors of the Western Hemisphere aware of the psychological and spiritual damages that have been programmed to think that Africa is their homeland when home is right under their feet. This work has repetitive tones to it for a reason. It is designed to deprogram the systematic programming of the indigenous Moors of the Western Hemisphere throughout the Americas on how they have been mentally trained since birth to view and perceive their own Moorish ancestors. I am Sheikh Kenu Umar Bey, a Moorish warrior. We oppose European expansion into our ancestral lands. We oppose our own people who supported this and oppose our own people who supported the rebel government called the United States. Our Moorish ancestors fought against Europeans. The new rebel government, United States. Our ancestors bathed in hot blood with our own kinsmen, who were wooed and seduced by European lifestyle and European trinkets. Many battles were fought with the so-called white man. And once again, that was indigenous 107 Amazing Facts About the Indigenous Moorish Americans of the Western Hemisphere by National Grand Chief Kenu Umar Bey, Divine Minister. Right?
Oh shit.
Any questions, comments? While we're here?
Mexican people.
Yeah.
To me, they look like a branch off of Native Indians.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, are they indigenous to this land, or
Yeah.
are they? They are.
They're here too. Yep.
Okay.
They're here with us. Right? And then all those, the idea that those people are separate from us is European psychology, right? Because they're indigenous here, just like we're indigenous here.
Same people.
They've been here.
Ecuadorians, you name
All,
it.
yep.
Okay.
All same people. Right? Same people, different.
Different tribe.
Different tribe, different physiological appearance.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But the essence of the people is the same.
Same thing.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's dope.
You had any more comments, questions with regard to the case thing?
Well,
With Annette?
well, the case with Annette, I realized a lot of things that he is really playing himself, you know, and not really knowing the true history of the land and the people. So I don't know. Like I know that the case that he claims that the Pope case is going to start next week,
Yeah.
the 31st.
And you know, I mean, again, too, it's not like it can't be filed or it can't be something that is being worked on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, you know, the parties of the case, you know, quote unquote, Pope is a private corporate tag.
Right.
Just like Queen, just like Prime Minister, just like President, whatever. So if you say, I'm going to sue the President,
You ain't suing nobody.
you're not suing nobody. You're just suing a corporation.
Right.
You know? And, you know, they'll let you go ahead with it because there ain't nothing in it. Like, what are they going to do? You know what I mean?
So sorry to cut you, but would that be probably the same analogy for a police officer, a cop?
Right, yeah. So if you are going to, if you're going to sue an officer or a judge or whatever,
That's right.
you're not going to sue them as their title.
Suing the whole corporation.
Right? You're going to sue them in their name,
They're strong.
in their capacity as whoever they say that they are.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if we say, you know, we're gonna sue the chief of police because, you know, it's his officers that are whatever. Well, you don't call no name. You're just suing a title, name the chief of police. You're not attaching yourself to an entity. You know what I mean? Especially if you're an improper person, you're trying to sue a corporation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's a conflict.
And he's not even like a Moor. He's not even claiming any sort of nationality.
Exactly.
Even
So
bring
he's
that
stateless.
claim forward.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, or is he suing? You know, like if his name's on it, his name versus whoever, right?
Right.
Then that's straw versus straw.
Yeah, and that can't work either.
That can't work. If you're claiming to be straw in a suit, that suit has no power in the jurisdiction. If you're a plaintiff saying that you're a straw, you have no suit.
But it can still work though. With the cop.
You're putting yourself in colorable law. You know, you're putting yourself in a different jurisdiction.
Oh no, I don't mean if you're in your de facto status. I mean, if you're suing somebody who has, because everybody has a straw man, right? But you can still sue that straw man, because that's how they're able to adjudicate on us too, no? Like when we go to court, they're trying to basically trespass on the estate, which a straw man is your estate.
Not
necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The straw man's a created entity before the estate.
You just have control.
Or after the estate.
Okay.
You just have control of it. But remember, when we say they're suing us, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a corporation.
Right.
Suing a corporation.
Right.
So everything could work. Because it's two corporate entities that are battling.
Right. When you're in your corporate
When you're in
status.
your corporate status.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
But if you're in your free national, Aboriginal, and Indigenous status,
Mm-hmm.
you should be going after an individual, not somebody with a title. You should be going after John Smith, that is badge number 777 of the police department of the state of whatever, or the province of whatever.
Oh man, then I'm happy with myself.
You know what I mean? You're not going at that badge number,
That's right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because it has a bond and you could, because the bond is to protect the corporation, not the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So go
but
after
then this is where it comes into, Moorish Temple is a corporation that could sue other corporations.
Yep.
Right? It
Exactly.
could go like that. It could go like that.
Right.
But,
That's what we should be
but if
doing.
Moorish Temple of America is suing somebody, it better be class action. It better not be one individual saying, I'm Moorish Temple of America, I'm going to sue somebody.
It gotta be the whole temple.
It has to be everybody.
It's gotta be the whole temple doing that, huh?
And the suit is going to be directed, right? If you file the suit, because where you file the suit also is going to depend on how much jurisdiction you have.
That's right.
So if we as Moorish Americans are going to file a suit against somebody, right? The jurisdiction that should hear that should be a Moorish American jurisdiction.
So we should file
Should
it
be a
in
foreigner.
So we should file it in Chicago then.
No, well, I mean, it's not
No courts.
the court itself.
It's gotta be.
Should be our court.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be going to a foreigner's court to sue a foreigner.
Yeah.
But we can actually make our own court then. Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
We can actually hold our own court.
Yeah.
Start recording.
Yeah. It's just like how the court system is.
Does it too.
Yeah, but remember, everything that has to do with Moorish Americans deals with Moorish Americans. Right? Like we were making the example that if we had all these people come into the temple and then they give finance and we built a hospital, right? Hospital's not for Negroes to come there.
Exactly.
They can't come because it doesn't apply to you.
But if a Negro does something to a Moorish American, he should be able to be sued in that jurisdiction. Though we should be able to bring him to our court.
Right,
Look.
right, exactly, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So how come we haven't really done that? Like, develop our own court systems and stuff.
Some Moors have.
Some Moors have.
Some Moors have.
I mean, it's like, you have to remember, they ain't gonna come. You pursue these guys in your court. You think they're coming to court? Especially knowing that we don't have any muftis to go chase those people down like how they have.
But we can create that. Like, we can put people in
Yeah,
charge.
but, I mean,
We have
can
that
create that, but
Yeah.
but it's like officer out there, right? Who violates something, right? Public servant, whatever. Who cares what we call him, right? And we're going after him in our court. You think he's just gonna come?
But then he'd be, there'll be a warrant, that kind of stuff.
No, it comes back to the same thing. If there's a warrant, right, and he skips town, who's chasing him? Because don't forget, he's European. He can go back to wherever he comes from and not come back here.
That's all the more. That's all the better, because then if he leaves, or we do that to 100 people, then
Yeah.
we're making a
But,
point.
but then, you know, it's a catch-22, because not all Moors are dealing with the principles of the Prophet. So there's Moors out there with weed on their breath and liquor, talking about cops don't have jurisdiction over them.
Yeah.
Talking about, you just bought juice from those guys. Like that juice is their jurisdiction. You didn't go to the Moorish bar to go get a drink,
Real talk.
right? You didn't go to the Moorish guy to go buy a split. You went to a guy who has a license in his pocket to go buy weed or whatever, right? And then you're smoking, and then you get stopped or whatever. That you're in somebody else's jurisdiction. Because I'm sure they know that they're the ones that brought that weed or whatever, crack, coke, shoes, sweater,
Liquor.
whatever over here. Liquor, whatever.
Stout.
I mean, they brought that over here. You know? And we have to just look at it for what it is. Like, we're under occupation. It's not like they don't know. They know they colonized. You know what I mean? Like, I think, you know, the Moors position is too much like, you know, we have to
Stay
do something right now, you know, because if we don't do it right now, then, like, they've been bankrupt, like we talk about. They've been bankrupt
So long.
from so long ago.
Yeah.
Right there, they've been a dead entity. Right? How is it that they still have so much power, and how come they're still in the way, and how come they're still stopping people or whatever? Because, like, we go out there right now, ask 20 people their nationality, 20 of them will say black, Jamaican, Trinidadian, makeup stuff.
Afrocentric.
You know what I mean? Right? When that has no power. You know, and then when you try to tell them about really what their nationality is, or they don't want to hear it. But if I go ask Chinese or Ukrainian or Turkish or Romanian or Kazakhstanian, whatever, they're going to tell me that they got nationality, show me a flag or something. And then our people don't even want to hear none of that.
I feel like we should be like stopping trains or something, or standing at a railroad, or stop a GO train for the weekend or something. I feel like we should be doing that,
I mean,
just to hit news and make them like start talking
But
about us in
remember,
some kind
if
of
you
way.
read our Zodiac Constitution, we're not allowed to do that as Moors.
This is how Moors get caught up. Because we
Not
don't have the full,
allowed to do
we
that.
don't have the full
Info.
It's part of
Info.
Act. I think it's part of Act 607, the Zodiac Constitution.
Is there one up there?
It's,
You got 5 minutes. Is there one up there? If there's not, then we could touch on it. Actually, you could just go online and look at that class.
Yeah, just go online.
There's a class on that.
I have it.
Yeah, Zodiac Constitution.
yeah.
Right?
So we're not allowed to do that. Like actually, we do have it. I want you to. No, we don't. We should, but here you go. Check it out. Right? We're not allowed to like alcohol. We're not allowed to go out like on a soapbox and proclaim, you know, you're all Moors.
Like all the nation is on the papers and all that.
Not allowed to do that. See, part of our constitution. What we vibrate on is spiritual.
Right.
So the ancestors should be speaking to you on this. And all the Moors shouldn't have to come to you and say, listen, you're a Moor.
Right. Just natural.
Exactly. I think it's Act 7.
That explains that.
Yeah. So it's like, in essence, us doing that, it's like, why are you doing that for?
Well, because they have the media part. I was thinking like, along those lines, but if it's in the Constitution, then we're not supposed to do that. So why we have it? You know?
Yeah, trust me, there's a lot of things that we can't. Right?
Yeah. Knowledge of zodiac masonry as shown in the Moorish Constitution and also in my book Clock of Destiny Volume 1 and 2 will prevent a Moorish American he or she from indulging in crime. They then would not have to appear in the courtroom and stand trial. Should a Moorish American who has this Constitution and Book 1 and 2 indulge in crime, such as narcotics, robbery, forgery, prostitution, illegal whiskey or alcohol, illegal schemes, gambling, peace-breaking, violence, and disrespect for the law of the city, country, state, and federal, they have incriminated themselves and therefore will be penalized. This Constitution card and book definitely does not protect criminals. Right? So if this is in the Library of Congress, filed there, and everybody who's a member of that Congress knows what's in that Library of Congress, and they know that, Moors aren't protected if they're involved in criminality or whatever. As soon as you engage in something criminal, it's like you incriminate yourself.
So advertising in that way is considered criminal?
What's that?
Well, just standing on a railroad, stopping traffic.
No, well, I mean, it's like,
You're stopping commerce.
if we, their system, right? That's like when people say, oh yeah, we'll stop the train, right? Think about all those people you're holding up. Think about that whole train, right? And everybody's situation where they're going, right? And how many people you're actually inconveniencing that have nothing to do with why you're stopping the train.
Yeah, but so some of the people on that train are Moors that didn't know that. Who stopped the train? Some guy in the red hat. What is he? A Moor. What's a Moor? And wanted to fight.
Yeah, well, that's not gonna, because we've been in the news in 2010, 2008. You know what I mean? That we're Moors and all that. You know what I mean? And that ain't gonna start. That ain't got nobody to. How much people are in there?
So basically, smoking too, drinking, like
everything's in there.
In what form are they talking about when they say smoking and drinking?
Like, okay, that indulge in crime.
Oh, indulging in crime.
Indulging in crime.
So like stealing some alcohol.
Such as narcotics, right? Robbery, forgery, prostitution, illegal whiskey or alcohol, illegal schemes, pyramid schemes, give me 500 and add it up and
all those type.
give everybody whatever, right?
No laundry.
Gambling,
okay,
right? Pro-line, whatever,
right?
Yeah. Bullshit, wasting fiat, you can give fiat to the temple,
Exactly.
You could go with pro-line and put down 20 on 5 games or whatever, but you can't put down 20 here and pick up 3 DVDs. Like that's a conflict. You know what I mean? That's a conflict of interest.
For sure.
And that's why Drew Ali made the statement. If you don't give me your money, it's gonna burn up in your pocket.
Real talk.
So it's up to you what you want to do with it. But I would suggest that you support, your institutions or individuals who are doing things for right and whatever like that. You know what I'm saying? Peace breaking, violence, right? It could be, let's say, you stop the train and a guy that the guy is late for work and he's mad, wants to fight you. He doesn't care about your cause or whatever. Like, I'm late for work right now. You guys stopping trains and stuff, I'm late for work right now. He's not fighting no government and all that. You're not hearing nothing about, we're doing this because, and then you give them the spiel or whatever like that. This is his 3rd day late for work. If he's late today, I have no job tomorrow. You can't feed his family.
But then we can also
wife's already beaking at him about, you don't give me enough money and all this type of stuff.
But we can also look at it too, in a way where, don't blame me, blame the colonizers.
No, but that's what I'm saying, that we can give them the spiel as to why we're doing it.
That's right.
I hear that. He's late for work. You know what I'm saying? Like his position, it's like with the Sri Lankans, right? When they shut down the garden,
Oh yeah.
right? That was a international cause
Right.
that was going on,
Yeah.
which justified their behavior. Because you know, if you guys are going to be in, if you guys have people in your country called Sri Lankan people, and in their country there's atrocities going on there where they're getting violent, then yeah, they have a right to.
Like
You know what I'm saying?
Ukrainians today,
Exactly.
they're
Right?
all uproaring.
Uproaring.
They get to do that.
Because
no
they
police is
can do
holding
that.
them down because their country is actually going on.
They can do that. You know what I'm saying? So because they can do that, right? Because they have because they have that position, right? You know, they're gonna take that position. You know what I mean? They're gonna take that position, right? So we have to remember that there's many different facets of the Moorish movement, right? You know, CM Bey did some work. You know, Cousin Bey did some work. You know, Taj them do some work. We did some work. Nature and them did some work. You know, there's Moors from Noble Juali's time that were doing work that you'll never hear about because they ain't talking about it.
Dirty Moors.
You know what I mean? It's not something that's gonna come out. You know? Right? Like Moors having manufacturing companies and stuff like that. You're not gonna hear about that stuff. Yeah, like real. You know what I mean? Right? Like actually having, you know, like Moors, giving Moors jobs.
What they making?
Whatever.
They were making whatever they needed for the nation. Because this, you know, people have to remember, Noble Juali wasn't some, you know,
Ordinary
little black guy coming talking about Islam or something. You know what I mean? Like he had connections. He had big connections. Right? He had big connections. He wasn't some joker. Right? That was just you know, pushing some ideal, get people to jump on it, and then, you know, after he leaves the scene, everybody, you know, don't know what to do, and, you know, what do we do, Prophet's dead or whatever. Like, yo, everything was done already. More is sold out, just like we're talking about, from, you know, the infighting. You know, the fight within their self, they don't know how to deal with that. So they take that out externally. Want to debate people about is Noble Juali legit and stuff like that. Right? Just because they have lower self, higher self fights going on within themselves that they haven't dealt with. And then they're gonna talk about, you know, they should be the head of something. How are you the head of something when you don't even have your higher self, lower self straight? Forget about what's going on out here in society. Right? How are you taking the position of, I'm gonna, you know, be trustee, right, of people's affairs, but your higher self and lower self aren't balanced. You know what I mean? You're gonna have issues. You got something? You got your hand up.
Oh, me? No. I was just saying, you know, greetings.
Right? Yeah. Right? So we have to just, you know, recognize that the work that he did was really for us to be benefiting right now. But people saw that, realized that, and, you know, took checks so that don't manifest. And they did a good job. Because we have to pretty much, you know, we have to pretty much just keep moving, and who gets slaughtered, you know, he gets slaughtered. Like, can't stop the blood flow. You know, you could limit it by, you know, tapping some people, let them know, yo, you know, I don't know what you're messing around with, you know what I mean? Whatever you're messing around with, you gotta leave that shit alone.
What happens if, like, China or Russia, well, China just takes over Canada? for Canadian people.
Yeah, well, they're taking over a corporation.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the same protocol if they take over. You know, oh, I ain't Negro, black, colored. I'm Moorish American. I don't know what you guys are talking about. You guys are foreigners. Clearly, you guys are foreigners. And we've been here before y'all. Matter of fact, y'all are Moors. Y'all trying to take over and run game on us when we're the ones who put you on. You thought you ought to build so you could build that wall that you guys got over there to keep the European out.
No, but I'm
Well,
saying,
how come they're buying stuff from the European now? Right?
Yeah.
They built the wall of China to keep the European out of China, right? But now they're making deals with the European
I do not consent.
and want to talk about, you know what I mean? Like, that's conflict of interest.
I know, but I'm saying that if they do come over here, because they built,
No, they're here. They've done
I mean,
it.
they built all the stuff. So if they want to take over the government here, and they
They built all the stuff in the sense of what? Like when they came over here to build stuff.
yeah,
again?
railroads.
Yeah, but remember,
Yes.
when they're talking about, you know, Asians came over here to build railroads and stuff, right? And they show pictures of those people.
Who's already here?
They're not. Those people weren't dark because they were dirty, building railroads. Those people weren't dark because they were in a mine or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the Asians we see over there today that were over here building stuff.
It's more the Filipinos too.
I know, but what I'm saying is, are we gonna watch them? Are we gonna watch these Asian people come over here and do the same thing that the Europeans did and not say nothing?
That's
sit
up-
back
that's
and
up
not
to-
operate our own courts.
That's up to Moors that are active.
True.
You know what I mean? But we know passive Moors aren't gonna do nothing, so whatever. That's like when people say, you know what, are we gonna have a Moorish school so we can take our children to?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will when you do it. Yeah, but well, how is it? You know, yeah, we will when you build it. But how are we gonna beat tickets and stuff? Well, we will when you beat them.
Exactly.
That's how it is.
I know I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna fight for birthrights or whatever. I ain't paying no tickets. Forget that.
Right.
Right? Like, cause I know I ain't got nothing to lose. Higher self and lower self is lined up with me. So I'm not even whatever. They do whatever. They crash system tomorrow. Whatever. You know what I mean? Cause I know that it's you know it's unavoidable. You know what I mean? The fight that we're going through right now, for example, right? Like against them. You know, like for example, like, you know, trying to cross the border, you have a fine or you have something, they're not gonna let you cross. Right? Those things are only happening because Moors didn't make Moorish American a status. You know what I mean? Moors said, well, you know, I'm Moor, but then they go over here, they're black. You know? Oh yeah, I'm Moor, but they go over here, they're Nuwapian. And then they tell people that, you know, yeah, we got land and we got whatever and all this stuff. And people are like, oh yeah, let's go. And everybody goes. But then stuff gets torn down.
You know, Moors is just it's identity status.
Right?
You know that's what it is, bro.
That's what. Yeah, of course.
It's just an identity status.
Yeah, but identity is
Who you are.
who you are.
So you have to boil down to an
So
identity.
what's your identity? You can't front. You can't pretend like your identity is
No.
something that you heard some guy make up because, you know, he's his higher self and lower selves lined up, and he could look at you in your eyes and tell you some shit and make the hairs on your neck stand up and you get goosebumps and shit. You're like, oh my god, this guy must be he must be the prophet. You talk about, he's a finesse master.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them.
Science.
There's many of them out there. They know the science, how to talk to people. They know that you know, language isn't out your mouth. Language is mind and body.
You know that.
Language isn't talking. Language isn't hi, how you doing, shake people's hand or whatever. That's not language.
Yeah.
Language is somebody walks in the room, everybody.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It's like when you walk into an administrative building. The administrator comes out wearing all black. Right there, you're afraid. The room is
kind of dim. Yeah, kind of dim. You know,
Right there,
they
it's
got
like,
the
oh shit,
AC
it's
on.
freezing in here. I
Yeah,
thought it was nice, but it was freezing.
yeah.
Right there, they got you.
That
Once that
language,
affects you, they got you. Literally.
right?
Literally.
And they do what they got to do.
Mhm.
I ain't knocking them because
They know the science.
they know the science.
You don't. You don't.
And the reason why we don't know science is because, you know, our own.
Dirty Moors, just bring it
Our
back.
own. Taking the position of, you know, I rather not tell than tell.
Williams, Goldberg, Jacksons,
You know, yeah,
real talk.
yeah. You know, they're conscious. They know their self in a conscious community. You know, when they're by themselves, they're black people. And they're given social numbers as identification and stuff like that. And they're supposed to be the head of something, telling people about being saved and all that.
Yeah, but that's knowledge that they don't know. It's like,
No, they know though. That's the thing. People assume that they don't know because they're not talking about it. But they know, that's why they're not talking about it.
who the black people or the leaders of the black
Yeah, the
Oh, yeah.
leaders.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
They know.
Because black people ain't going nowhere unless the leaders say, let's go.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? You know? And most of the time, you know, the leader has certain information that he's he's withholding.
Well, took an oath not to tell you.
You know?
Death oath.
That too. They got an oath not to
Some
tell.
real agents.
So,
real agents. Like,
Yeah.
It gets you pissed, I know.
oh man,
It gets you pissed, you know?
wow.
And you go behind closed doors, they have the fez on, they're doing all this shit, but they're not telling you, right? They're not telling us.
and then like we're saying, like, you know, they're agents, but they're agents because they're a member of some order. Now where's a fez? Just like we do. But they don't want to get down with this.
A
They want to
European
be, they want to be in the order that the Europeans have. When we're wearing the same headwear in this, we're studying the same stuff, all the stuff they have on their feathers and whatever, Islam and Morocco and whatever, same all the stuff we're studying on this side,
Yeah.
but they don't want this. But they're gonna go do the lodge thing. And take an oath not to tell their people that the lodge thing, the foundation of it,
Is us.
the quote unquote shrine of the Shriners is a Moor, you know, doing the freaking Heisman freaking shit. You know what I mean? Right? You know? Right? They have a statue of a Moor outside Chicago Stadium, you know, doing the whatever, you know, and nobody doesn't want to recognize that, you know, we're God.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It's worse than bad, man.
No, like, because my mom's been giving these church people money for years, and I went to the church the other day to check stuff out. They're still doing building funds for like the last 10 years.
And the building is standing.
And it's still in the same place. I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys are still doing this.
And Jesus ain't king yet.
Jesus ain't come yet. And if he did come, they wouldn't recognize him anyway. Like, they're talking about building, they have $6 million and they want to build this and that over there, and it's just making me sick because and it's a black lady that's the pastor.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst part about it, because the black female.
Mm-hmm. They want them the most because that's where most of the power lies
the
within
female.
them.
Yes.
Is in the melanated female.
Well, she has this church upside down.
Of course, because she's upside down.
Exactly.
You know what's funny, Cruiser? Remember all those sisters that came off the bus on Friday?
Yeah.
Man, like, that was powerful. Eh?
Yeah.
Knowing what we know and seeing it, like, there was just like a whole bus of, they were going for, it was a church event that they were going to.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them, not one of them, except for the boy that was there.
One boy there.
One boy. All of them. All females.
Down with the
Elders,
church.
youngs, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that hit me was like, they're all wearing wigs.
And
Fake it. Weave, whatever,
Hair
right?
and all that kind of stuff.
Tyler Perry,
Yeah.
all of these jokers. Yeah, because they follow that.
Yeah, well, no, but
Yeah.
for what I got from it was, like, we have a lot of work to do.
They do.
I'm trying
I'm
to
not saving no
I
money.
mean, remember, they're coming off of, like, remember, they're churchgoers, right?
Mhm.
Nothing against them, whatever. I said hi to a bunch of them. They just looked at me like,
Who are you?
like
Were you wearing your fez?
no, we won't.
Probably would have been worse if you wore your fez.
Maybe. It's like, hey, how you doing, sisters? You know, just
They'd have probably sent
Leave
Satan
it.
after him.
finish. It's like, wait, y'all coming from church and this is the godliness that you bring with
That's
you?
the evil that they've been taught. You know,
Exactly.
I don't know no good Christians anywhere. You know,
There's no such thing.
there's no such thing.
Because ain't no such thing as a Christian.
Oh, dark skin Christian.
Morisco?
Alright? So, but it was just one of those sights to see. After you know your knowledge, you go into the church. That pastor knows what's up. Eastern Star, I don't know, but they know what's up.
You know what's up. And they're all about raping their people. Because
They're
you
dancing.
tell me that you have freaking
So if they're scared of Satan,
you
they're
have
talking
plus fund
directly
or
to
whatever.
Satan.
You have building fund, and you guys have how much millions of dollars, and you haven't spent that yet.
Exactly. Nothing profit.
Like you haven't bought the building yet. You guys still have this little building that you guys been playing around with.
And people are still going there and putting money into
And
the
people are
building.
still going and putting money.
Yeah, like
So doesn't that mean that that's like supreme mind control and brainwashing?
yeah, but they don't see it that way. Because when I explain
Yeah,
it to
but
them,
no, but again,
when I explained it to them, I said,
you can't explain
you
nothing
guys
to
are still
somebody
here
brainwashed.
doing this. You guys,
Brainwash
you guys
people,
claim
you
you
can't
have
explain
6
nothing to
and
brainwash
change
people.
mil, and they still ain't moved, and they're like looking at me like, yo, calm down.
No, calm down.
Yeah,
Because,
Right?
this has been going on for years.
It's brainwash, yo.
yeah.
Brainwash, mind control, zombieism, whatever you want to call it, vampirism, whatever. Right? But some people aren't savable. Nothing personal.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Tons.
Well, yo, what Noble Jwali say? What's all you Moors doing here? Only a handful of you going to be saved and our fingers left over.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the Moors reminded me that thumb isn't a finger. So you'll have fingers left over, right? So 3 people might be saved, 2 might be saved, but that's it. That's it. That's how much people is going to be saved. And then we could multiply that because, you know, as a Moabite is equivalent to 100 bailiffs or whatever. So
Yes.
one individual equals maybe 100 people.
One more is 100 bailiffs. Yeah.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so 7, 100, 7, oh yeah, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we got 1,000 right here. That's gonna be saved. So we got 1,000 here, you know, and then, you know, a couple people who aren't here, you know, right? But you know, even you know, scriptures 144,000. That ain't nothing compared to the world population. That's pretty much 6 people.
Really?
You know what I mean?
1%.
Like,
Oh, that's less than one.
Less than 1%.
right? 144,000. That's it. That's gonna be saved when rapture comes.
That's a football game right there.
That's what it is. That's what it is. You know. But that's class today. Let's just do a close out. Oh yeah, don't forget.
Oh,
You have
no, just put up announce Wednesday classes from 7 until 11 o'clock at night. I do a class here, so come out. Let's build together.
keep in mind next week Sunday we got the Moors from Khalifa doing their Skype lecture on the new book Moors in America. And you can get that at Amazon.com. And that's March 30th and April 26th, the great debate between myself and Ali Muhammad. This is love. Right? So we'll just get the close out. And any guy you got questions or anything or whatever? Any more comments? No more stouts.
I got a few. I ain't go front.
5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace. Freedom.
Freedom.
Justice.
Justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
To His holy prophet.
To His holy prophet.
Noble Juali.
Noble Juali.
Islam.
Ashe.
Islam.
Ashe.
Peace.